You're listening to Silicon Heartland Sessions, where we highlight the voices driving innovation across the Midwest and beyond. In this episode, Warner Moore breaks down the myth of risk. With honesty and nuance, he shares how privilege, planning, and purpose intersect with the entrepreneurial journey, and why chasing your passion doesn't have to mean gambling your future. And this podcast is brought to you by our incredible sponsors: Rackspace Technology, your trusted multi-cloud solutions partner; Varonis, protecting enterprise data where it lives, on-prem and in the cloud; Trace3, helping organizations innovate through advanced IT strategy and execution; and Sigma Computing, enabling business users to explore live data without code. Let's dive in.
I talk with middle-aged people later in their career, and they look at it as being really risky leaving a career to start something. And
Right.
they might have meaningful wealth built from their years of retirement savings and tons of career history. So the risk there is small. And the same could be said at somebody a mid-level engineer who has highly valuable expertise. What's the risk at working in a startup versus a large tech company?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my mind, very little risk, but if it doesn't work out, they can get a job. No, there's a lot in the details, right? But I think in our culture, we often frame a risk in ways that is outsized, right? We get in a car every day. It's one of the riskiest things we can do statistically.
Yeah.
And we're scared of jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. And it's one of the safer things we can do statistically. So I look at risk as personal, situational, but be calculated, right? There's a way to take calculated risk without having a lot of risk, a high risk of a negative outcome, right?
Right. I would imagine then, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would imagine a part of managing that risk and that balance between, risk and what you mentioned earlier about privilege. And again, when I hear the term privilege, a part of it, has to do with potentially the way you were raised and the kind of means you come from and so forth. But another big part of it is what you've created for yourself, the planning you've done along the way, the important decisions that you've made along the way to, like you said, to put away for savings and things like that. But I imagine another piece of it, and I'm really interested to understand this, is diving into things and doing things that you're truly passionate about. Not just seeing an entrepreneurial opportunity that might be a niche to fill, but making sure that the things that you're pursuing are things that you are truly passionate about. And when you talk about like GammaForce.io and the Tech Community Coalition, I imagine that these are things that were born out of your passion for security, your passion for community.
Yeah, that's very true. Your observation is spot on. Uh, th- there's a lot of anecdotes right now about how some people who were raised being told to follow their passion, whereas others were not. That's maybe a short-sighted lesson to share with a young person. And I'm more pragmatic, right? Now, uh, we're people, and all of us are different, and uh, we have opportunities to make an impact with the limited time we have in the world. So I think there's, in many cases, people have skills and experience and knowledge that can be harnessed in different ways. If someone's building a meaningful company, it's going to take about 10 years based on stats.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if it doesn't fail. So if somebody is going to do something for at least 10 years to make it successful, if you're not passionate about it, it's going to be a hard, long slog.
No kidding.
And if
Well said.
you're creating something, well, you have the choice not to create something you hate. So that's one way to
Well
look at it.
said.
Right? And Some passions like music, right? Highly competitive. Everyone wants to do it. Very
Sure.
difficult career to take off.
Hmm.
It's difficult every step of the way. So if somebody isn't passionate about that, they're going to give up. And the whole thing is doing a thing that's difficult, that takes a long time. Giving up isn't an option.
This is true. That's very, very well said. You've used the term passion quite a bit. When I think about my relationship with you and getting to know you over the years and so forth, I know how passionate you are about the community and all of these values that you've been talking about are born out of your passion for the community, and in particular the startup community and the nonprofit space and Columbus and the Columbus ecosystem. And I'm curious, I know you're deeply involved in several social issues. What are some of these, social issues that you're passionate about, and how do you actively contribute to them?
Yeah, community's always been a big part of my life. Early days of the internet, right? It was all communities, primarily folks who are passionate about sharing information and learning. And uh, I built nonprofit communities on the internet early on, and intentionally chose not to take them for profit because I thought it would have devalued what was created in the first place. I had a website that was getting thousands of hits a month in the early aughts, and doesn't sound like much right now, but it was a big deal back then. And as far as community in-person events, one of the first I ever attended was 2,600 meetings, which was early computer security uh, group.
Wow.
Um, the so with that, it was all a bit organic, right? I I think that engineers tend to get really focused on a problem space,
Hmm.
and that's by nature, right? Having to dig into details, figure out how something works, build it. So it's easy to get really heads down, and then when it comes to building relationships, community, career skills, doing the care and feeding of things that help um, support long-term career success, it's easy to miss that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work I do through Tech Community Coalition, where our mission is to enable the tech and startup communities through charity and education, it ties to that. These groups are platforms for technologists and other professionals to share their experience, their what they know. Often they're driving and leading change in their fields. It's an opportunity to share with people who might not have access to that information as easily, and an opportunity for us to work together and grow. So I think that when it comes to social causes, I don't often think of it in the context of a list of the typical social causes and pick one, right?
Hmm.
What is that? Adult education. I don't find myself thinking about adult education ever, but maybe it's that.
Sure.
And I think it's important to help folks. So many other social causes I support. I'm on the Life Care Alliance board IT committee, which
Hmm.
is the biggest Meals on Wheels program
Yeah.
in Ohio and one of the biggest in the country. So,
Yeah, they are
yeah,
amazing.
community is important, right?
Yeah, I would agree. You turned me on to the book by Adam Grant. It's called "Give and Take," and why helping others drives our success. And I learned a lot from that book. The idea that there are different interaction styles. There's givers, there's takers, there's matchers, and so forth. But I thought the most important thing for me, at least, that really resonated was the interconnection between success and reciprocity. I'm just wondering how it sounds to me like a big part of your worldview in being an entrepreneur, and what drove you to being an entrepreneur, was really about this whole notion of giving of yourself, finding those things that are the most passionate, giving of yourself, and then letting that be the bedrock, or the foundation for your own professional and personal success.
Yeah, I love that book. Adam Grant's one of my favorite authors, and a fantastic researcher when it comes to organizational psychology. And it really helped me rethink just all those concepts. And it's research based, so it's not a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of anecdotes like a lot of business books tend to be. And and there have been times in my career where I feel a bit beat down, right? Giving a lot, putting a lot of energy out, and the short term feedback loop for that isn't always positive, at least in my experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to get burnout, get exhausted, feel like the impact is one sided. And I think that's a big challenge. In fact, he explores that exact scenario. And it really helped me reframe some of those situations and
Mm-hmm.
really just get over it, right? It's like, well, okay, I might feel this way right now, but it'll work out in the end.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Then.
a lot of things are so transactional in society. In the moment, it can feel wrong. It's like I've been taken advantage of, or I'm doing this thing to help, but what I see coming back isn't positive for me. Um, a good way to illustrate that is in management or in a career. Uh, a bit of a anecdote is if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted. And I've lived by
Well
that
said.
philosophy for a long time.
Heck yeah.
Now, there are organizational cultures that I'd say are less positive, where if somebody empowered others in their team to make themselves replaceable and not a single point of failure,
Mm-hmm.
that organization might look at them as redundant as opposed to recognizing the impact and leadership that they um, executed in the organization. So that's just one very specific example where
Mm-hmm.
if somebody does that and we treat them that way, that's a negative feedback loop.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I managed to get through it without taking the wrong lessons from it. I hope others do too.
Thanks for tuning in to Silicon Heartland Sessions. If this episode gave you something about, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And a final shout out to our sponsors, Rackspace Technology, Varonis, Trace3, and Sigma Computing for their support of our growing tech community.